Hi, welcome to another review by Jim. This week we're looking at my 1968 BMW R60US. The initials BMW stand for the Bavarian Motor Works, and they got their start making aircraft engines in World War I. In 1923 they built their first motorcycle, and in 1928 their first car. During the Second World War, they built the iconic R75 motorcycle for the German Army. And that's the one you see in the movies all the time with the sidecar. And what's not well known is that the sidecar wheel is actually driven by the motorcycle engine, so it has a lot of traction in all sorts of terrain. They also built the BMW 801 14-cylinder radial engine, which found a home in the famous Focke-Wulf FW-190 fighter aircraft. At the end of the war, unfortunately, they were reduced to making only pots and pans until 1948, when motorcycle production began again in the Munich factory. But even then, they had to completely reverse engineer their own pre-war designs because they had lost all their blueprints to their other factory, now in Soviet-controlled East Germany. Russians actually dismantled that factory and took it home, and it's still in operating condition today. It's actually producing what are known as Euro motorcycles. Owing to a number of missteps of making luxury cars that didn't sell very well, BMW in the 1950s found itself facing financial ruin. Mercedes was prepared to buy their factory and convert it into making trucks for them. However, BMW did luckily have a profitable line of expensive and high-quality motorcycles, and that persuaded a last-minute financial bailout. However, by the 1960s, motorcycle sales, even in Europe, plummeted, although they remained strong in North America. Have you ever wondered why there are so many European manufacturers of motorcycles, but only two that survived the post-war era in North America, namely Indian and Harley-Davidson? Well, motorcycles represent an essential and cheap form of transportation that was perfect for a continent whose economies had been devastated by war. Conversely, in North America, the economy was actually finally saved and pulled out of the Great Depression by the war. And the newly minted middle class had so much money they could afford to buy new cars and never looked at a motorcycle. This iconic BMW logo does not, in fact, represent a stylized propeller spinning in the blue sky. That's a bit of disinformation that's been perpetuated for decades. What it represents is the checkerboard pattern and colors of the flag of Bavaria, which is the largest state in the southeast corner of Germany, with Munich as its capital. So this bike belongs to the /2 family of motorcycles, and that family represents the very last line of the pre-modern BMW motorcycles. These engines are based on designs from before the war, and they feature strange things like a 6-volt electrical system, a very low-pressure lubrication system with no oil filtration. Most /2 bikes, which were made between 1959 to 69, come with something called an Earl's fork. It's a much more robust front end because these bikes were designed to drag a sidecar, and you need something that was strong enough to withstand the stresses of doing so. In '69, BMW was ready to debut its new modern line of motorcycles called the /5 family, and they had reverted back to telescopic forks. So for 2 years, '68 and '69, they made a hybrid model only for the US export market, in which they replaced the Earl's fork off a /2 with the /5 telescopic forks and deleted the sidecar lugs off the frame. This made for a much lighter bike, a much more responsive bike than typical /2s. I actually find it more fun to ride. However, most BMW cognoscenti do not like these bikes because they don't have Earl's forks, and as a result, the values suffer. But they only made 1,800 of these bikes, so at some point these will be very collectible. A well-restored /2 is worth about $15,000 US. So all BMW bikes share the same traits from 1923 to the modern day. The most obvious is the twin-opposed motor slung low in the chassis, This one is air-cooled, but the modern ones are also oil and water-cooled because of the higher output they can extract these days. This one produces 30 horsepower with a displacement of 600 cc's. The opposed pistons also achieve a natural primary balance, so in operation the motor is very smooth and with very little vibration. Longitudinal setup of the crankshaft lends itself to shaft drive instead of chain drive, means easier maintenance and a cleaner operation for the rider. All BMW bikes also feature a tubular frame of varying thickness and diameter and a well-dampened, comfortable ride. These bikes are quiet, reliable, and comfortable. These bikes were introduced in an era where even brand new cars or bikes could fail within a few hundred miles. And they were renowned for their reliability and for long distance travel. In 1959, a person rode a stock R60US from New York to LA in 52 hours. Then that feat was repeated in '69 with the same bike, but it took only 46 hours. Denny Liska rode an R60 from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego. It took him 6 months and 90,000 miles, but he made it. There's an iconic picture of him on his cover of his book where the R60 is lying sideways in a dugout canoe while he crosses the Amazon River. Typically, the bike would be black with a white double pinstriping, but the factory would paint your bike any color if you supplied the paint. Another popular color was Dover white with black pinstriping and a white frame. There were a variety of bench seat options and also individual tractor-style saddles. This bike has the large sports tank with a dorsal compartment holding the extremely complete and high-quality BMW toolkit. The Speedo comes with markings that tell you what speed to shift since tachometer is lacking. These are accurate but period-correct reproduction enduro side cases, and the top case is a knockoff Givi scooter top case. The exhaust mufflers are period-correct, non-factory MTM mufflers with a slightly louder than stock sound, but the coolest accessory is the bike comes with its own air pump. Okay, it's time for a ride. I've owned vintage BSAs and Triumphs, and this motor is exceptionally smooth and vibration-free, even by modern standards. Acceleration and braking are leisurely at best. Top speed is probably a shade under 100 miles per hour, but you could ride it at 90 miles per hour all day. It's that effortless. I've touched 80 miles per hour riding on the superhighways around Toronto in order to keep up with modern traffic. The clutch is automotive in origin and the flywheel is massive and heavy. So shifting is either fast or smooth, but can't be both at the same time. Unusual for a motorcycle is that it's penetrated pop culture. This bike is actually almost a supporting character in the seminal book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And it's also an objet d'art owned and ridden by Steve Jobs. who placed his R60US, actually his R60/2 I should say, in the atrium of the Apple headquarters in Cupertino, California, to inspire the designers of the original Macintosh computer. So I'm afraid I'm going to leave you a little nauseated at the end of this review because of the flexing of the camera boom. But I hope you've enjoyed this review of the BMW R60US. Thanks a lot.